You're good.
All right, it's 9:15 on Friday, November 3rd. I'm gonna officially begin the meeting of the HVAC, Town of Fairfield HVAC Building Committee meeting. At this time, I ask us to stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Approval of meeting minutes, there were none, correct?
There were none.
All right. Item number 3, project updates, security, vestibules and roof.
Real update, we approved the, proposals for BL last week. And so they're working on design schedules that we can talk to Jesse after the meeting on what the design schedules are, so we can throw it in and get tracking on that. And roof is with Silva Petroselli. I'll do the same with them to get the schedule.
And then we're gonna tie that in, obviously, with the HVAC projects moving forward. Okay.
Has the Board of Ed changed our charge?
Yes,
I'm sorry, not the Board of Ed.
yes,
BOS.
it's official. They have, it's the HVAC project that we are working on. We were given the vestibules and the roofing project. So that's
more specific in the charge.
right. And then that's why last week we approved to move forward with that, and we'll have the drawings and everything.
Yep.
Shortly.
And title change also.
And the title change, yes, it's the HVAC,
IAQ.
IAQ Building Committee. Yeah, that 10 times fast. It's a pretty long name. So
Along with the myriad of projects that you have.
we'll see. All right, item number 4, approval ad services.
Well, no, we need
Oh.
the update.
Oh,
We need the update for the roof, or no, not the roof. The HVAC projects. Information went out yesterday. I apologize.
Can I make a comment there?
We're not, well,
I mean, we made a request early on that we get this information at least a week in advance. Getting it at 8 o'clock the night before a meeting is not acceptable. And it's got to stop. Because we don't have, I mean, we're going to review things that we haven't had an opportunity to review. And it's not acceptable.
not seeking approval going forward today.
Discuss
Understood.
it today.
We are gonna discuss it and we'll be discussing next week, yes.
And, you know, we may have questions
Yes.
which will not be asked or answered today. So please if we're gonna discuss it in a meeting, I would like, and I'm speaking for myself, not for the committee. I would like to see it at least a week in advance. If not the night before, because if it's the night before, I just won't participate.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
Simple. Thank you.
I think that's a fair request, right?
Yeah.
There is no reason, we get it at 8 o'clock last night, let's give us time to work it over,
Understood.
even talk among themselves as a committee, see what's going on, right? And then expect us to come and be an agenda item. Discuss it. Is there a reason why it's being delayed, that it can't be met at the request of the building committee?
We got the final the Gilbane estimate this week, I believe Monday. Yeah. And then, I believe,
Received it on Monday. Let's just say,
Yeah.
for all intents and purposes, all right?
we,
Why did it take until Thursday at 8 o'clock to receive the
I also
information?
put it into the budget that we'll be talking about also that I sent along. So yes, it is on me to get it out and I will.
I apologize for the harshness, but
No,
I mean, I get it all the time too, because when I submit things before a meeting, people get PO'd. And I understand why now. So,
There's your option right there.
So,
I get it, you get
Yeah.
Yes.
No,
What goes around comes around. But please, let's just try to.
Well,
and
if we don't mind, I can add. I mean, ultimately, everybody was anxious to find out where we are with the budget, and this is nothing but sharing of information. We received the documents and our guys were jumping on the estimate and developing the estimate. We reconciled the scope early on last week
Last week.
because we
last
really
Wednesday.
had like literally 2 weeks to kind of package up this estimate. I know everybody was anxious where we stand on the budget. And everybody was saying, okay, we're gonna see it on the 23rd, and I'm sorry, on the 3rd. Said, okay, we're gonna try to hit that date, because I know everybody was anxious. So this is nothing but sharing for the information. Actually, literally last night or yesterday, late afternoon, we met up with BL's estimator and we finalized the reconciliation. So this is kind of call it a snapshot in time
Mhm.
of where we are after the two firms have reconciled. And Mike, you said he's on the call. I know he said he was gonna show up. Maybe he decided to call in. So we'll go through any questions you have. By all means, take your time. We can meet next week after you had adequate time to review.
We're scheduled to meet next week anyway, so.
You have adequate time. There's no urgency. There is good news. We're still tracking to the budget, which is good, but absolutely. Just today, if you don't want to discuss any questions, by all means, that's fine too.
Yeah,
Well,
Amar, I
it's- well-
apologize. I am on the call. I'll be there as soon as I can. I'm about 10 minutes out, but I
Okay,
can
take
answer
your time.
questions on the call. Yep.
All right.
I'm sorry.
Oh, what are you sorry about? All right, so do we want to go over this? I mean, it's
Yeah, I
tough
mean,
to
we're
talk
we're
about.
here.
All right, so. Where are we?
I mean, overall, well, I will start off and then, we'll get into the details. At schematic design, total project number was 38,190, 191 for all three projects. After construction documents, we are at 38,200, so we're less than $10,000 over the schematic design estimate.
It's a good news coming.
Well, well, that is the only news. The good news is we're not 100,000 now, we're not. We're tracking basically what we're tracking at schematic design. And then Amar, if you want to go through.
Wait, go back. So all in, when we go in front of the town boards, we're asking for an additional $16 million?
Correct.
Is that with or without? Abatement that I'm asking
That's
for?
without. Okay,
What do you mean,
Should be
without
allowance.
abatement? What specifically do you mean? Just
Do-
So the extra money that I'm gonna ask that we're not gonna use unless we have to abate, that we learned our lesson from.
the contingency budget.
of abatement allowance.
Like the amount that we used at Holland Hill and the Mill Hill, Riverfield that we learned from Fiasco and Osborne
What
Hill.
are we asking for contingency?
That would be my next question. So how much am I asking for? What would be the recommendation, you guys, contingency specifically for each school?
There should be I'm speaking for your guys'
Go ahead,
estimate, but
please.
there should be a line item in there for abatement allowance, I think. uh, Different from the contingency number, but that's just what I think.
All right, well,
There's a number in there for abatement. Identified abatement already.
Hazmat, right, for hazmat scope that we really still waiting for the actual report. Once Wood and Curran do their survey of then we compare it to what we're actually demoing and removing and see which areas we're actually impacting, because they will typically provide an estimate in their report, I presume. Wouldn't they?
Right, well,
if it was asked for.
what's happened on the
That's
previous.
right. We're carrying more money in Osborne Hill. We have a plug for the other two schools, but we didn't, discussions with Jesse and the field walks with Sal, Osborne looked to be the one that has the most potential to have some hot ceiling tiles. So we're carrying more money in Osborne for an abatement allowance.
Right. That's a known incident, but, you know, in the, addition, the addition projects that, Jason, specified, kind of tripped over a bigger problem that wasn't accounted for by the normal survey, this, that, the other thing. So it's a prudent thing to do to get another contingency just for that.
Right.
That being said, I think the likelihood of tripping over a problem like the ones that we had are much less because of the scope of the job. I mean, we're cutting some holes in the roof, putting it down. It's not like Riverfield where we were testing through a wall and then we had PCBs.
Right.
So we're not having those kind of operations happening. I'm on board with having another contingency specifically for abatement because you just don't want to pump the brakes on the job because of this dollar issue, and then you just hand it back if it's not used. The size of it, well, I don't know if $50,000 per site is a good number, 100,000. I don't know.
Howard Hill and Mill Hill, we both, at both schools, we carried 500,000. At this, that's for additions onto the school, demolition of wet walls in bathrooms and such. Off the top of my head, I'd say 250 per school, just because to reduce it down to that, because we're not doing the addition. We're not going to deal with the mastic on the foundation wall where we have limited additions. We're not knocking down wet walls where we have mudded joints. So it is just basically in the wall and in the roof.
250 per school. We're at 750,000.
$1,000,000.
Call it $1 million. So we're asking, going to go to the town bodies and ask for $17 million in extra costs.
And I think
Rough
we're,
numbers.
I think we're being conservative with Osborne Hill based on the past history with that school.
Well, we're asking for, 750,000. We're not doing it per school. It's a lump. It's in there. So
Right.
if there's, if it's 750,000 at Osborne School, they got a lot of other problems there. If we're just cutting holes through roofs.
Right, and it's, I'll say it's unfortunate. I shared the statement about ceiling tiles, but we had a contaminated ceiling tile, but it was confined and it was because of a specific lab operation, and that was abated. And the follow-up question was, well, why didn't we test everywhere? We spilled our drink here, we cleaned it up here, we didn't go around the whole office to look to see if any of the other carpets.
That's going to be the natural reaction.
Right, so,
Um,
so you're carrying something for it, you're prepared in case something happens.
I have no objection. I think it's a prudent thing to carry a contingency, but that bottom line just scares the dickens out.
16 million
Closer to 17. but-
without the abatement that we're asking. 16,
Oh, without,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
16 million. We have to ask the town board.
Yeah, even that number scares stuff out of me.
What, so,
15.5.
so wait, so North,
There you go. I'm sold.
Well,
North Stratfield,
not for anything.
But-
Don't round numbers.
No,
I'm just saying, it's like, they hate round numbers.
So-
It kind of seems like you didn't do any work, maybe give them a round up.
North Stratfield, we're over 2,109,900,000. One.
how come we're over 2 million? If that's the one of the schools, wasn't that square footage actually less than what was originally on the study? So how are we over 2 million on that budget? If it's actually less than what we were first given.
So I guess you gotta be careful. It's not so much the square footage, it's really you gotta dive into the scope itself, Jason. The square footage plays into the overall scope of work. However, please keep in mind, are you comparing it to what?
Well,
still
I mean,
talking about the
we're-
DTC?
Let's put it this way, we're going in because we have to tell them that Fairfield Woods, we underestimated it was 20,000 square feet, which is why it's $10 million over budget. So any layman can assume, well, if North Stratfield, you said we were under the square foot, why are we over $2 million?
Hey, Mark, can you go back to the previous, the last report we had from October?
Because now it becomes a selling job on the building committee going in front of these.
Yeah, that.
Yeah, well, we were, Jason, this is Chuck Warrington. We were, can you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, as you can see here, we're 2.7 over in our Stratfield, but I think it goes back, I agree with Mark, it goes back to the scope. And Mark, you had,
Right.
your spreadsheet that had all the detail that,
Right.
identified the major buckets, and that's what we did review, with the Board of Ed that we were at, that we all tended to.
Okay, that's what scope changed between September 11th and now? That increased.
No, it went down.
The
variance.
delta it looks like the delta went down on that one.
Went down 600,000.
On what?
Looking at North Stroud,
No, I'm looking at Osborne. We said the scope has changed. Or because of the scope, there was an increase. What was the what happened between September 11th and November 1st that increased the variance?
So 1.9 in September,
And
$2.9.
$1 million. What was the cause of the $1 million?
In 2 weeks, in 2 weeks. Right, September 11th to November 1st, not even a month. Wait, hold on, no, sorry, I skipped my month.
It's really, you gotta look at it from a schematic to CDs.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
North Stratford went down,
right.
Fairfield Woods stayed basically the same. What happened to Osborne Hill?
Right. So I guess maybe go into the summary. Hey, Mike, all right, good timing.
Say, I was.
Timing. But while he's getting set up so as you're all aware, we went from schematic design, which was basically a rough plans with narratives to really more detailed drawings. So the quantity takeoff, as Mike and his team will go through the documents and asking all the questions that we're still making assumptions. So by division, I think going back to that sheet here. Yeah. So we're talking about Osborne Hill. Yeah. And right there, that summary that you see right there, this column right here is really by division, kind of defines which ones went up, which ones went down, and how the numbers actually add up. So we're looking. You want to present to that?
Yep.
Part of the estimate, the screen, so everybody could see it.
I caught the tail end of that. on my-
33, there you go.
So the mechanical, electrical were the big increases and trade costs. We'll look above the line. So you see that overall, we're 1.7 million in trade costs above our schematic design estimates. So that far right column, I know there's a ton of numbers here, but this was the easiest way for me to sort of compare it.
We're looking at Osborne. You're looking at Osborne?
I was just saying overall, start
you
with
wanna-
1.7. So the 1 million at Osborne, as you can see, the two big ones, HVAC and electrical. Those make up probably 50% of it or roughly. And
70%.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I'm looking at the 1.7 up between the three scrolls. So yeah, so that's 70% of it. And at schematic design, we're going off of square foot data. So it's tough. We do our best to look at other jobs and say it's $60 a square foot for a new VRF system. So after walking the field, I think Jesse, you would agree, it's the premiums that we found when we were able to see the systems in place and on the documents, feeder routes on the roof definitely add cost, but we can't route them through the school because obviously Osborne has the skylights, for instance, or for example, and we can't route it that way. So we have to route conduit up on the roof. It's got to be in a special galvanized rigid conduit. That's certainly a premium. Rooftop ductwork, the quantity of fan coil units in the classrooms, just because of, Jesse could talk more about this, all the thermal properties and code requirements for that. We need more cassettes. So it's really schematic design, historical data cost per square foot versus takeoff. So that's exactly why luckily we had a hefty amount of design contingency at 15%. So we reduced that by half below the line. But that's really the bulk of the increases. And then, as you can see, that's just moving through the trades. So there's some swings up and down. Another big one was the Division 7 there. I'll focus on the major increases. I think it's good to see some decreases, but the 120,000 in thermal moisture protection, that's really up on the roof, again, related to all the rooftop ductwork, conduit, circuits. Everything needs stanchions, supports, sleepers. So at every location where we have that, we feel like there's a decent amount of flashing and patching of the roof that, again, last time we had a cost per square foot. This time we were able to itemize it better. So those three items that I just mentioned make up the bulk of it.
So it's equipment and manpower.
Mark, can you go back to your summary?
November?
Yeah, please.
So it's safe to assume, if there are any delays moving forward with this project, we can assume the cost will go up more because potentially the manpower costs and the equipment costs. Because we can't,
Installation, depending how much you delay it, if you,
Right.
it's.
Talking months versus, well, yeah.
months,
Years.
months is
versus-
equal to years around here. I mean,
Our standard for escalation below the line is to calculate from the day we submit the estimate to midpoint of construction. So, again, that's, if I can predict escalation, I'd be retired.
Also,
But-
don't lose sight, Jason, is that the bulk of this work is being done over the summers. So the closer we erode that duration and we get closer, the more it becomes challenging because trades will book the work for the summer.
Right.
So we want to be proactive and get out there. And so subs are not completely busy and say, I already booked up my work for this summer. I'm not bidding this.
Right.
So we got to be conscientious of that as well. Tanya.
But the escalation of March should be all taken into account already. It's not like we're like, oh, it's gonna climb again. We've already
Correct,
taken
yes.
this into account.
Correct.
And Mark, maybe one suggestion, Rod, I think you had a good point of, the delta between the last report and the other one. I guess the question is, should we show a line below the variance of delta since, October? What's the other date of it? Mark,
September
that's the
11th.
date. Do you guys want to should we highlight, what the change was in the variance between the three projects?
I think we're gonna have to, because going in front of these boards, especially the Board of Finance, they're gonna see that the two, Fairfield Woods and North Stratfield actually went down.
Right.
Well,
And
I,
Osborne Hill went up by $1 million. So.
It's just due to refinement of scope. I mean, that's.
No, I understand that, you understand that, but
We got to spell it out.
we're gonna have to spell it out and be precise,
yeah.
And Mark, we should put on here, based upon construction
number
documents,
sound
right?
like
Because
this.
we've developed the documents since the last one, and yeah, it's been a short amount of time, but it's just the way the project is going. But I think it's on CDs.
And I think also be prepared that somewhere, while I think ultimately we'll probably pass all these through, that questions like, all right, well, what if I don't do this at this location, but I do this at this location instead, or something like that. I think that them, these are all separate and they're gonna get, approved, I believe at the end of the day separately, but I think that's gonna be a question. And obviously Woods being the one that's driving it is gonna be, I think, might be the big one where they go, well, what if we just didn't do it and we gave some of the grant money back and we did these other projects? What does that look like? So I think we just need to be prepared for some variables that we'll have to answer. Again, I think at the end of the day, it'll all get pushed through, but we might have to, it might be, a knockdown drag out.
Well, it's gonna be uncomfortable to say the least.
Well, and
Yeah.
I think, David, you made a very important point that they need to, and it needs to be shown here. What did we get by rushing funding just to a preconceptual estimate? And, we got $6.2 million worth of grant money. So your decision to say, gee whiz, can we delay it? You're just throwing that away.
We're asking for $16,248,800. That's what we're gonna go in front of the board. That's all in, including our abatement contingency and things like that. So
And it might be
that-
worth,
that-
Cor-
that's over.
Correct. We're asking for that, but that's not really what we're asking for. They are all actually independent projects with independent funding streams, with independent bonding. I mean, there's a whole, grants, whatever. So they can come in and say, we're gonna do every roof project and vestibule and HVAC, and you know what? We're gonna give up Woods. Actually, we're not doing it right now. We're going to give up the money for that specific project. And then we're going to turn around and say, that sucks, move on. Or are we going to turn around and say, well, wait a minute, here's all the reasons. I think the answer is we're going to do the latter. Here's all the reasons why, and this may be the BOE as well. Well, we're still going to come back for Woods. We've built it into our plans, right? That, do it 5 years from now and it only costs this much more and you don't get a grant. Sal, you may speak to this. Hey, if we give up that grant, is that going to make us less competitive on our next round of grants? My guess is probably not going to look very good. And maybe we have some examples of where these things have escalated in the past when we punted it by, X number of years and then we came back. I think it only just gets worse. At the end of the day, me personally, I believe, not just as a committee member, that every building in town should and will have all of these things done. The sooner that we do these things, the sooner that we actually, even if the bonding numbers are more uncomfortable for the town, and I say that as a former BOF member, at the end of the day, the escalation numbers are only going to get worse. But I think we just, as a committee, need to be prepared that there's going to be a lot of people that are going to want to start talking about breaking the shiny object out, which is the Woods project that's over by 10.
Correct.
And we need to be very, I think we've got some time to prep for these meetings, but I think we need to be very, very prepared for how we counter why it needs to be done. And that's not just the committee or all the various consultants and contractors on this, but it may also be the BOE, either central office or the BOE itself saying, well, that doesn't mean we're not coming back next year. You're just coming back next year without a grant and for more money. This
And for
project
more
needs to
money.
get done.
Correct.
right.
Correct.
So, yeah, so. I mean, have you had that specific feedback from folks offline?
So I was gonna bring this up, but I guess I think it's sort of been passed around everybody, but obviously we're not at this point going to the boards in November. It looks like the BOS wants to take it up in the next term. I started, my process went through the first selectman's office and with an offer to speak with the others if asked, but she's the chair, so it's either going on or not. with her take. It took a little bit of time for them to get back, and when they did, the feedback was basically to let the process play out into the next term. So I did say to Jason that, I conveyed the message that it should go right away as soon as they're all sworn in, which means we might be cramming this into December, trying to hopefully get it on first pass through, knowing, January is our padding. And I think we go with obviously, yeah, we've got to be, we're already now delayed trying to book out for summer. So it's got to go right away. We can't do January into February and things like that. Feedback I've gotten, and I've had a couple of different conversations just to kind of feel out on this project beyond that. There's definitely a, why not just break out woods, and sort of a sense actually that the BOE, and I think it came up a little bit in the capital planning summit, though I thought that was, I don't know, I have my thoughts, but a little bit of, the BOE is, this all the phases, not just this phase. Yes, we're in phase 1, but now they're projecting out to phase 5. It's almost like building an entire school. The BOE is going to basically allocate an astronomical percentage of the capital allocation over the next decade or longer, trying to push through all these projects. And I think that there's a sense among some people that they can do it, but it's a little bit nuts because there's so many other things. So I think that some of the comments that I've had back are like, they should be slowing this thing down, stripping out woods. Who cares if there's a grant? There's other things that the town and the BOE probably should be spending the money on. And, that's not a huge number of people, but the people I've spoken to, outside of even just checking in on the BOS. And I think that with that, the BOS, particularly after the Capital Summit, the answer came back like, there's a lot of questions out there. Let the process play out. We're not rushing it. But that's not for this committee to some extent. I would say that as well. I mean, we are charged actually by the town for the project, right? And working with the BOE and central office. It's our job to now say, this is where we're at. What do you want to do with it? And it's for the town to then decide. I just think this project is gonna, as comfortable as it is for us, there's gonna be other players, probably BOE side, that are going to have the uncomfortableness put on them as well, because there's some global things that I thought were gonna be sorted better at the Capital Summit and didn't really seem to get sorted.
Such as?
Well, let's stay on topic with this project. I mean, I think what David said.
So,
David said it correctly. Our charge is to present what we have, which we have done. Our charge is to go front now in front of these committees to say, this is what we have. This is what we need. To piggyback what David said, if we split it up, we have to tell them, look, Woods needs to get done, and this is the reason why. Right? I think the BOE has, from their last meeting, they have supported this project. Okay, so we just have to be prepared, and the people in this room need to be prepared for the questions that need to come out from the BOE. I mean, the boards, right? The town boards moving forward. Why was Woods underestimated so much? All this. Why is this different from November? Why if we're having less square footage, this is up, and we have to answer those correctly and professionally, which is what we've been doing, right? The
Exactly.
next step, just to piggyback on that, because we're being pushed to December, it is reality in this town. We've all been a part of this process. If it's not done by February, we're not getting done right away. We're talking budget season. They're not going to listen to anybody at that time.
Very narrow window.
And then we have a very narrow window, but we're still on target, even if with the December meeting.
Right.
We're still on schedule, correct?
probably a pretty good segue. The Board of Selectmen meeting was,
I was just gonna ask the same.
yes, I can do. I just gotta find my cursor.
Just gonna hear his narrative.
There you go.
There we go. Okay. Previous schedules, we were going in front of the Board of Selectmen November 13th. We were gonna get the stuff in next week, or basically Monday, go in front. There we go. Stop touching. Board of Selectmen on the previous milestones was always in November. Board of Finance line item 36 was always December 5th. So basically, if we get pushed to the Board of Selectmen on December 4th, as long as we can get on the Board of Selectmen agenda and the Board of Finance contingent upon Board of Selectmen sending it to the Board of Finance, this holds true. RTM is scheduled for the 18th. So Board of Finance and RTM remains the same from previous. If it falls to January, if the schedule holds true from last year or this year, we'll be going in we need Board of Finance after the Board of Selectmen. So Board of Selectmen met the Monday, the holiday was the Monday. They met the Board of Selectmen met the following Monday. Board of Finance first Tuesday would have met the second or third, I forget what it was, but they met the 10th after the Board of Selectmen. So if that holds true, it just bumps to the January, and then the RTM meets January 22nd.
The RTM on the, what is that, December 18th? Is that what you're saying there? Item 39? That's their actual voting meeting. When's their committee meeting?
I do not know.
We gotta be present at that committee meeting to present this to them at that committee meeting so they can discuss it. And then they'll be able to vote on it at that meeting. So we need to get on the committee meeting, which is usually, I don't know what date it is. If you could look that or. And then the minute the elections are over and everyone is sworn in, we need to make sure, because we have a very tight window between the BOS and BOF, that everyone on the BOS and BOF have this document. So they have time to look it over. Whatever we're showing them. Whatever
Whatever we go forward with for the additional ads.
No. We'll see it way before. Way before.
The date on that way before. It's November 3rd already,
Instead of 8 o'clock, it'll be 7 o'clock.
The same day. All right.
Any concerns from the building committee, members of the committee?
Well, depending on how the election goes, we could have an entire new BOS and the speed could be difficult.
You're gonna potentially have a new BOS and BOF.
That's true. Yeah.
So all joking aside, 2 weeks from now, then should be your target for having
Yes, I agree.
all the information at this meeting. And, make it public, invite, we'll pick a bigger venue.
No,
Invite somebody from Board of Finance that's not up for election. Just to be acknowledged, invite board members in so that they're cognizant of the discussion and,
Well,
it's not,
these meetings have always been public.
no, they are, but take the specific step to say, please, we want you to hear this.
I fully agree. However, I would want to see the information, have a sit down prior to that, so we know what all the information is and we've discussed it between us
Right.
before we invite.
Right, and that might be the.
Meeting on the next,
That's
on the
right.
10th, and then
Is this, all
Well,
this information be ready by the 10th?
Right now, we packaged up, we've reconciled
Yeah.
estimates.
pencil
Well,
down on the estimate.
So we're at what point are we at design, contingency? We're still at 7.5.
If we cut it in half, it was 15.
Yeah, I understand. What do we,
What level of drawings? 90 or 100?
They're not 100 yet.
Not 100.
not 100?
Well, the last,
Maybe
the
70.
last 10% are just buttoning up stuff. You're
What's
not-
remaining on those, Jesse, if I can ask? What's not buttoned up yet?
Civil site design, because I had to follow everything else with the coordination with the UI. So really that piece, the lighting design, but I'm guessing Gilbane covers the lighting pretty well, even without an actual design, but so the site work is my biggest question mark right now. And everything else. is
When,
just funding it up.
What date are you anticipating having those complete? Because we need to review those again before we go out to bid and do another review.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, that's why, Chuck, we're sitting on 7.5 design contingency, even though it's technically CDs, it's not.
Yeah.
So we're carrying that contingency. Definitely the hazmat report is something we need to nail down as quickly as possible. Make sure we don't have any
What is that?
surprises.
We don't have a contract yet.
Is that Woodard and Kern?
Yeah, we're having a challenge coming to terms on it. But we'll see when they get back to us.
If Jesse, if that becomes a problem, make sure you let us all
We
know.
need to move
We'll
forward.
Go a different direction.
We can't, we're sitting here, we're
Who are you
talking
talking?
these boards.
Franklin?
Get in touch
I'll-
with George,
I'll,
somebody.
I'll contact him right after this meeting, just to say, hey.
Trying to clear up all the unknowns. So that one.
Got to see if
So we have hazmat.
Hazmat, we just want to confirm because so far we've been carrying some budgets on our end without the
No,
info.
And that's, yeah, I mean, that's critical.
Right.
We gotta have the site civil.
Oh, absolutely.
When can we expect that?
I'll get back to you on it.
We can't meet anything until we really, that's important, right?
You're gonna need some time to review the site.
Just
civil stuff. I
It's
mean,
not
it's
a
probably not
tremendous
that
amount,
much.
it's not a tremendous amount of site civil, but we just want to confirm the numbers that we're carrying, meeting that design, obviously. But we've been talking, we feel we got it covered. And that's why we're leaving some design
Right.
contingency.
I mean, you'll get a super spanking if you're going in with it. 7.5% design contingency when funding is.
At 90%, yeah, but.
Yeah, you're not at 90%, you're 75. Say it's, we got to get it up there tighter.
Right, and I mean, we used Google Earth, we obviously walked the sites, and for the jobs, it's really empty pathways and transformer pad. So, we basically gauged that, the routing, where it's going through, if it's going through the parking lot, we carry money to repair asphalt, just as long as there's not like a retention system or something underneath that we have to go around, anything crazy like that, but we think we have it covered, so we did
Yeah,
our.
are we confident of the route that there's no other utilities?
What'd you say, Chuck?
Are we confident in the route that there's no other utilities that we're gonna interfere with or intersect out of the blue? Do we have any utility maps that we've reviewed?
We do have some of that info and yes, we do have to cross where other utilities are underground, but that's not unusual.
No, it's not unusual. I just want to make sure we identify it. So when we get in, we avoid change orders and we know it going out, and if we think there's any question of them, it's short money to do ground penetrating radar to confirm where it might be. That I just don't want to see us assume that's a, easy path.
Unfortunately, it's electric, so, which is always shallower than any other utilities, and there's no pitch to it, so at least that one, less conflicts, hopefully, when we cross over from the pole to the building.
Each job is 2 5-inch conduits from the pole to the
Right.
transformer, and obviously the transformer into the building.
Yeah, Mike, feel free to speak. I mean, what other divisions you feel that there's still information that's needed?
Yeah, Jesse hit it, and I mean, we talked over the last couple of weeks on miscellaneous items that I think would be covered. In the design contingency, adjustments in smoke detector quantities,
That's what,
miscellaneous support steel, possibly underneath some of the conduits and pipes that have to go on the roof. So we have money plugged in for that. But that's stuff that,
Do you have a structural design?
yes,
yes.
yeah, for the major framing underneath the rooftop units, this is more for,
Miscellaneous steel for openings?
miscellaneous, yeah, if there's, I highly doubt, I'm not a structural engineer, but there's 3/4 inch conduit up on the roof. But there's also some feeders that are 4 inch conduit with copper in them, so,
That's
Yeah.
not.
yeah. I
Ductwork.
we doubt it, but we just want to.
Ductwork is what we got.
Let's talk about the smoke detection system, though. It's, based on our conversation with the other. Still don't have the true quantity of how many we're gonna carry for duct smokes. This is the conversation we had yesterday, so do you wanna
Well, we have-
elaborate?
With
Maybe
with
Jesse.
Jesse, I don't want to put words in your mouth. I know there's CO detectors in all the classrooms, so.
There's
based
CO
on the
detectors
discussion yesterday,
And we're gonna reduce that number because they're not required in all of them, but we need a certain number of them. At the same time, we just need to add duct smoke detectors because we've seen change orders in the past from that. So we want to make sure it's buttoned up so there will be no change orders during construction, and we're hoping to have that done by next week.
Okay.
And as always, I'm gonna coordinate with you guys and say, hey, here's where we are, share drawings with you.
Agree,
And,
but in
uh,
terms of where we are with the estimate, do you feel that that's an offset, or do you think it's, or we don't know, if that's still unknown? What do you?
I think a duct smoke might be a little more expensive than a CO detector, but, again, we depending on how that shakes out, that's another reason why we're carrying 7.5%.
And
As long as we don't have to, we talked about this, if we have to add in booster panels or modules to the fire alarm panels and fire alarm system, that's where it could get a little hairy.
Right.
If there's capacity in the panels and we can daisy chain off the devices.
Do we know
No, that's not something we usually do.
That's not this.
You need the vendor.
that? Sure.
Well, Fairfield Wood has a 10-year-old system fully addressable. That was changed in the last renovation. The panels at Osborne and North Stratfield, I know that there was no problem when we added equipment at Osborne with the last project when we were doing the windows and the AC, the gymnasium, rebuilt the gymnasium and all that. I don't think the firelight panels would be a problem. They're still very serviceable. They're utilitarian, let's put it that way.
Yeah,
You know,
it's just the capacity of.
Not simpler.
that's the issue.
Not simpler.
Just telling your BMS.
No, I think it's firelight that we.
Yeah, I think you're
Might be
right.
worth
I
it. I
remember.
don't know, is it the same fire alarm vendor for all 3 schools or?
I can put you in touch with them.
Yeah, just,
Do you have an on-call?
it's worth having them look at what Jesse's team came up with and, what they have in as-belts, just to, on that. If they're adding only a few devices, it shouldn't be a problem.
Well, I think that the dialogue would be, here's a list of devices we want to add to North Stratfield, Woods, Home, and then, any capacity issues
Yeah.
that we should be aware of.
Right, because I mean, at the end
And
of the
they-
day, the electricians bidding are gonna go out to, Firelight, I think.
Well, they usually the statement is just made, the district's PM contractor is
Yeah.
so-and-so and.
Yeah.
95 times out of 100, they usually reach out.
Yeah, but I mean, to help, I think make everybody a little more confident. We did get controls quotes for the 3 schools, which is extremely important, especially how tedious it's gonna be with changing over some of the pneumatics. We got quotes for the VRF system and we got quotes for the working on equipment
And the gear.
in the gear, yep, and the electrical
Right.
gear.
Which is really the major components of the project.
Including with those quotes?
Have those guys on speed dial.
Are you experiencing any change in
electrical gear is the worst. Even this building has, I think the biggest, what, 1,600 amp, I think is the biggest, but even so, you think that's not huge, but they're still seeing 40 to 50 weeks eating.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I really don't think it's it's the panel, the back box, and like just it's more like the little trinkets.
The guts, yeah, the
Anything they're getting from overseas, it's a hard time getting.
Yeah, it's essentially a lot of that's custom made, when it's not big stuff, so.
Can't even get an arm shield cover for, it's been 6 months I've been waiting on Ian to get a panel cover.
Meter cans,
6
even meter
months.
cans. It's
They don't even
it's
respond.
crazy to think that you can't get a meter can.
VFD is really difficult.
These dudes are a nightmare.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else we want to bring up?
I just want to reiterate, if we're gonna be meeting next week to go over this stuff, I would like it buttoned up, just as much as possible. We'll keep the 7.5%. I know we're gonna get whacked on it. But if things aren't wrapped up, then.
Well, the question that'll come back is, somebody will go, well, that's $1.5 million. So are you done now? Can we take that off? By the time you get there. So wait a minute, you got, that'll be the first thing. So it's not 16.2. 16.2 minus 1.5. Right? Right? Yeah, no, yes, no. Yes, that'll,
It's a good point.
yeah, you got to tighten that up.
So for the next meeting, I mean, this is our estimate based on the status of the documents right now. I don't think there's any additional design information coming from you, Jesse, between now and next Friday. That's gonna change the estimate and we need to make any modifications.
Not significantly.
Right, so the site work, I guess when that information comes out, but just for sake of next Friday, if you have any questions on the estimate, this is it for us. Obviously, when Jesse issues the updated civils, we'll take a look at that and make sure that there's no.
So what is the schedule for civils?
I'll have to ask the civil team. I don't know at this point, but, Yeah.
Is that in-house?
yeah, so it shouldn't be an issue. I mean, everyone jumps on everything, but it really was, it was the whole coordinate with UI and try to get that finalized as possible before knowing where we're gonna bring stuff in from. Oh, yeah, that's totally it.
Right, source.
So subject around here, huh?
And then Woodland and Kern, you still have to touch base with.
Hey, Jesse, Chuck Warrington, is it possible, say by next Tuesday, for you to send out an update of when the documents will be done with a hard date? We just gotta nail it down. If we keep floating out, whatever.
Our deadline, as far as this committee is concerned, is that first BOS meeting,
A week before.
the week before. But we cannot change that meeting date.
Let me ask. How do we get on the docket for their meeting?
You just have to ask.
Yeah,
When do we have to ask?
We can do it now.
Can do it now?
Yeah, we were on the November one for November 13th, way back when he first came out with the schedule.
Oh,
So we
okay,
we
all right.
took it off. We're off.
So we don't have to wait for a select, the first select person to, okay, all right.
So I believe if they're, by the time that we get to the BOF part, everyone's sworn in. They're ready, sworn in about a month, I believe. I could be wrong. I don't know the date of when they're being sworn in.
I heard the 25th. or
25th
something.
is a Saturday, I believe. So
Well,
we'll find out that day.
Yeah.
Jason, we're just talking HVAC at this point in
Correct.
time.
It's only
I
8.
know the roof and the vestibules are still kind of hovering around us, but as far as the.
As far as these means are concerned, it's just gonna be the HVAC,
Right.
what these 3 schools are for
Agreed,
HVAC.
agreed. I'm just because those other ones are hovering around.
Correct.
That needs to still be.
And they're not designed, and we're not right.
Which
North
raises-
Stratfield has to happen, the roof replacement has to happen, or put
Right,
the patching numbers out of North Stratfield for HVAC,
right.
so they're just,
Dale and Angeles have funding for North Stratfield. They got that approved, so that is going forward,
So that's moving forward. The
Yes.
design on that one.
moving forward also.
And-
Dayton, Silverfish, Sully had it said.
And you mentioned yesterday, I think you said as far as OGA's approval, is it just a standard?
On the HVAC, there
There's
is no,
none,
there,
yes.
there is no PCR to go to.
Right. But on the roof is just a routine.
Yeah.
Touch base. Can we, is that on your?
No,
Okay, we
That's,
should probably,
it,
yeah, you can have- because I got all these moving parts, I gotta keep an eye on and just make sure that we don't lose sight of, okay.
That's coordination.
So is there anything you need from us, Gilbane, that is for next Friday? Aside, we've given you the estimate, we gave you the variance report, obviously we'll, and any questions you ask now or later, we'll find, we'll address it, but is there anything else you need us to give you between now and next Friday? I can't think of anything, but. Me neither. Okay.
Well, we have a reconciliation document from yesterday too.
Right.
Just to track Yale's estimator versus us, so.
Yeah, we did that exercise yesterday into the afternoon, so we could present that to you or share that with you.
Got that today.
We were, you have it? I think it was sent.
Yeah.
Yesterday.
There's about 7% below us, which is roughly, we'd like to get within 5 to, I would say, under 10% in reconciliation, so they're a little bit lower than we are. But we have reconciled a lot, I got quotes for everything.
Well-
So,
Yeah, that's.
and just look at that far right bottom, if you go to the bottom there. So we started significantly apart, and we dialed it in.
I know.
Yeah, I highlighted the yellow there, just the.
They have a button on the wall. Just change
There
it.
you go.
Yeah, so we are $2.3 million apart. They are lower than us.
A lot of progress. I think some of the big takeaways where I itemize and take off all the figures off the refrigerant piping.
Right.
There's a lot. Quotes on the gear, so we've made adjustments there, and then all the field observations that
Right.
we've seen in the past 3 or 4 times we've been down there.
Go to the left, what are the categories?
Well,
That's the bottom line.
The bottom line, those are just the markup because the trade is what you want to look at, the 22.8 versus the 24.
Right, if you go to the following, well, you don't have to do it now, but the following pages have all the weeds by spec section on how we reconcile.
Yeah, you get to see the variance on the trade cost.
Right, yeah, that's good right there, Mark. So,
here.
No, that's not.
I haven't seen this.
No.
Came out yesterday.
The base estimate values are where we started, so as you can see, there was a huge gap, and again, we 24 versus 11. So there was a big difference there. The green is the adjustments, which on the following pages you'll see. But as you can see, 70% of the adjustments roughly were in electrical and HVAC. So and we're still a little bit higher than where estimator are, but
System condition.
yeah, little things like, look, site services or the Division 1, that's Gilbane Site Services, like that wasn't a part of their estimate. That's something that we need to do the job, so.
Huge difference with concrete.
Get challenged on that a lot. We're getting a lot of unit prices on concrete lately though, so.
Also keep in mind, the scope is so small. And so it's not like obviously, we had more intimate knowledge as to where the areas of disturbance. Talked to Jesse a couple of times, like, okay, which way we were running with the routing with the feeders? Are we going underneath the slab? Are we going on, So I think that's part of the information that the outside estimator was not, didn't take that into consideration.
Some of the stuff we were just talking about recently, so.
I agree, yeah. I mean, that's timing of the information when it was.
That's pretty high. Finishes. You're a million apart or we're a million
That's because
apart.
of the ceilings, I think primarily that he was
We
not.
we ended up reconciling our number because.
Right.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the left side of them.
Anything stand out?
Yeah, well, I'm naming them. HVAC.
Huge delta there.
Well, what started out as huge, now it's 300.
No, again, I'm just looking at the left side. I'm not,
Oh,
I'm not looking at the right side.
I think I love that, MEP, reconciling MEPs or not.
Existing conditions, you guys are still far apart. On the right side now. Why?
Yeah, and, you know, it's really the demo numbers, we just, again, I think it was more of like unit rates, how we quantify things, so.
In metals, you're still significantly apart.
Yeah, and the metals, again, it wasn't really in the major framing, it was in that
The miscellaneous
steel.
stuff.
We had a Mark from DL bring his numbers up a little bit, he thought that, you know, some of that would be captured in design continue. So,
Is all the conduit and whatnot, elevated above the roof?
Yeah, most of it. Yeah, we just don't have enough ceiling space to have.
No, I know, but is it above the actual finished roof?
Mhm.
Yeah, so it's on.
Yep.
yeah, and again, those feeders were a big reason why electrical, it's hard to capture that in a square foot number, but like Fairfield Woods, there's a couple of feeders that have to be 600 feet. They go from the new electrical room around and drop into, I don't know what wing it is, area A of the drawings, I think, and then down into the basement. So stuff like that is where you saw an increase in the trade cost.
And that's the electrical stuff like that's actually probably a good point to make when you're presenting to these boards, because I would have never assumed all three of these schools needed new services to start with. And now that we got into it, it's just especially like Fairfield Woods, you know, it was renovated 10 years ago. I would have bet money that we could reuse the existing service there. And the fact that we can't, we have to run from one spot across the whole building with that. It's a huge, you know, as Mike was just pointing out, it's a huge increase in scope that can't be captured until you know you need that.
What's the size of the service? 2,500.
Existing, yeah, somewhere around there. It might even be 1,600. Because in 2012, they reused the one that was installed in the 90s. So even though they made a big addition to the building and added stuff, they didn't increase the service.
What are we providing to?
We're no, you can't, because it's already the maximum size that UI can provide or close to it. So we need to put in a whole new 1,600 amp service, which is totally removed and separate and just powers all the new HVAC.
Someone making a list of all these things with detail, because it's very helpful.
That explains why, yeah.
Yeah, and at the schematic level, I don't know if you recall, we had our comparison from the VDC to the SD. All the way to the right side, we had a kind of high level reason as to why each division, there was an increase in cost and what it meant. So we can update that list. It primarily captures what Jesse was talking about, but we can tweak that more.
Right, and
Yeah,
that variance sheet
Yeah.
that we had up earlier with the several columns, you know, those items are baked in there. It's just with the three schools, it gets, I don't want to say messy, but you'd have a lot of paperwork and a lot of variance items. So we can do high level notes like what I just talked about.
Yeah, exactly. I think some of this is like high level across the board, and then tier below it across the schools and still at a high level. That's all I'm talking. Yeah. Just because they're really, really fair points that make things really expensive really quickly. Right. So, and they're part of the story as to, you know, how we got to here. And even just at a higher level, I would have thought the same exact thing about Woods, just because we were there and did such a major renovation. What do you mean we can't do this, right? Oh, it wasn't done already, but there's reasons. It is what it is.
The same story, you know, even with, you know, why do you have a roof project? That's something you just were working on 5 years ago. Oh, no, yeah. We're just there and now we're doing the roof. It kind of seems silly.
Well, also, but that exact question that will come up can be flipped around to, why are you doing something like, while we're here, why are we doing X, Y, and Z, right? There's a bunch of scenarios. And, and not that and there's enough gotchas in all these public meetings, but not that I want a gotcha back, but it's a counter. It's like, well, hold on a second. We're gonna be asked why we're doing some of the things we're doing while we're already there, at the same time as being asked why something wasn't already done when we were already there. And in
Well, we-
each of those instances, it's just that much more expensive when we come back, if we don't do it now.
That's the point that's funny, because, BRF is probably the cheapest option to go with. So, all electric, it's good for the environment. But it really increased the electrical equipment costs. So there's more load on the system electrically. So you get rid of all the hydraulics and a boiler plant piping. But then you gotta add for electrical. So there's.
At the end of the day, as this committee keeps referring to, we know what that overprice is. We know what they may come back and hit us with, right? Our job also to remind them that these things need to get done, and if you delay it, if you look at the cost, how it's gone up since we've been discussing, and the supply chain waiting and this and that. Next time around, it's gonna be more expensive, the delay's gonna be potentially longer. And so on and so forth.
And we're not assured that the grant's gonna be there.
So,
It's the dialogue you get is like, yeah, we're gonna fund this every year. It's always gonna be there. It's not set up in the law that way.
I will say this, I've asked about the grant, if we have delays and stuff. According to the state reps, this is coming from them, it's obviously the state itself knows when you're working with the local government, what it's like and what could be delayed and stuff. We constantly showing we're moving forward, which I think we are. There should be no issue with the grant, is what I've been told. We're not the only town in this situation, right? We aren't, and I'm sure we're not gonna be the last town. in
And
this
we
situation.
might be able to get special legislation,
And,
for
and,
woods.
and at the end of the day, though, the job needs to get done, grants or not, right? And that's what we as the committee need to tell them, and that's the truth, right? We're talking about air conditioning, and we all talk about the health and everything of the kids, which is what we're talking about, which is why we're doing these projects. And the fact is, if you think it's expensive now, wait 2 years. Right? Well, now we know it's gonna cost
That was the
more,
whole scenario you had on Riverfield.
so.
You had
keep
two
waiting.
choices, do it now or do it 10 years
Right.
from now.
We know what it is now. You wait, it'll cost you X amount more because we see the numbers going up, and you're gonna be potentially against supply chain delays, so even push it out more, so. But get to that point, we need to make sure we're buttoned up. And as Dave has thrown out, and Rodney has pointed out, all the stuff that can be thrown at us, that we need to make sure we're answered, and that's what we need, right? Anything else?
Percent to where?
Midpoint of construction would typically go up.
It's 4%, yep. So the
4%.
calculation was 4%.
So, what are you calculating as midpoint?
October 24. Hold on, I usually have it in the description. August.
August 25.
Yeah, half of it. Yeah, I think that sounds about right. Hold on 1 sec. So 16. I have a fancy Excel calculator. I don't want to do it in my head. I built something in Excel to do it for me. Let's see.
While there's a lull, just to let you know, the application for the roof was done yesterday with the state. Well, within the first 10 days.
It's going from the data to estimate, so. And that's just assuming.
Anything else from members of the committee? David, Rodney? David?
I'm good, thank you.
All right, so we need to make sure we button ourselves up, get in touch with Woodwood Woodward and Current, please. That's, shouldn't have been this long. We've been discussing them forever, so. All right. Approvals. Ad services, none. Invoices, no invoices. Good, I like that. I guess not. New business? Nothing? Think so. So next week's meeting depends, we want to make sure we're buttoned up, right? If it's not out when we need it, we're not gonna hold a meeting. There's no reason to hold a meeting.
On all the information, you know, what do you want? Your contact.
If you can get it to us, that's fine.
Well, you have.
We have
This
this, we have,
Going that for life.
but in any of the,
Draft.
you know, what we really need to see is the package we're going to give, the boards. I mean, if it can't be done by the meeting time, that's fine. We can discuss it in the meeting, go over it, because we still have one more meeting before that happens, so that's not an issue.
So it depends on what information we get. Why don't we put draft on these then? Draft them up. Anything else? Any comments from the building committee? Further comments? David, Rodney?
Nope.
All right, I need a motion for adjournment.
Make a motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, this meeting's adjourned. Thank you.